We continue on with our QB targets in the draft. We've talked about Caleb, talked about Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and Michael Penix. Today, it's Bo Nix out of Oregon, and he's just part of this archetype, guys. 3 years with a different school, transfers, 2 years with another school, and turns into a hot prospect, turning 24 in a month. But Bo Nix from Oregon, 37 touchdowns, 2 interceptions last year for the Ducks, 6'2", 217. Luke Inman, the draft resident aficionado, give it to us on Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix, first thing you notice, the athletic ability, creates with his legs. If the play breaks down, he's ready to improvise, keeps his eyes downfield. He's ready to sling it. If it's not there, he's going to take what you give him with his feet, try to move the chains. The arm strength, it's good. It's probably not elite. The accuracy is fine. There's enough there to work with, I think. But solid arm, B+ at the improv stuff, I think, creating outside of structure, which is nice. The downsides, you mentioned it. 24 years old next month. I think his birthday is like February 25th. So 24 next month already. The other thing that you really don't love, for being a 5-year guy with all that experience, he's still not great at reading the field, going through his progressions and the footwork and mechanics. It's just not great for a 5-year guy. So when he gets pressure in his face and commits to staying in the pocket, you see a lot of these back foot throws from, and also that Oregon offense really didn't do him a lot of favors either as far as being prepped and ready for the NFL. Kind of reminds you of Hendon Hooker a little bit. It's a lot of quick screens, RPOs, ISO, vert routes, etc. So unless the plan, I think, is to mold your offense and change it like the Eagles did with like a Jalen Hurts with the RPOs and whatnot, I think it's going to take them at least a year to digest everything. And I would guess he'd be a redshirt candidate. And now he's already 25 when he gets his first real chance as a starter. So I think you got to ask yourself, with the Vikings specifically, when we look at all these quarterbacks now, I think this is the third or fourth one we've done, how much is KOC willing to adapt the offense to the next guy that shows up versus finding a guy that maybe already fits what he wants to do, has the traits that kind of match up to what KOC values the most in a quarterback? Because I think with Nix, it can work, but I immediately think of like an Eagles offense or like a Shane Steichen deal in Indy. And so that's my question with him, I guess. It's still early. Combine and pro days always shuffle things up. Very curious to see, again, what kind of athlete he is on paper at the combine. But as of now, with the guys in this class, he feels like a second round type of guy, similar to where Jalen Hurts kind of went.
I haven't seen anything of Bo Nix. I think I watched one Oregon game this year and I wasn't really paying attention. So I have to lean on you guys for this. But like, my question would have been like, because he's an older prospect, what's the problem? Because you just have that much less of a likelihood that problem gets solved. If he didn't fix it by his fifth year of college, well, what are the odds that you fix it in the pros? But the thing about O'Connell is interesting, because I do think, we saw him adapt the offense, or at least try to adapt the offense with Dobbs versus Jaron Hall versus Mullins. Like, things changed throughout. Some of them worked and some of them absolutely did not, but there was at least a willingness, right? But I wonder, like, at the same time, that means that when you're picking a quarterback, you're picking an offense too. If you're picking like Michael Penix, you're picking a lot of deep, go balls and stuff. And if you're picking somebody like Bo Nix, what is that offense? Like, what is the thing that you have to do to sort of cover up his deficiencies and highlight his strengths?
I think Luke makes a pretty good point. Inman, obviously not wrong. That naturally, right? That actually, I hadn't even thought about it like this, but this is really good. The Jalen Hurts comparisons in terms of how you would have to tailor that offense, because it is a lot of quick decision making. The issue with the Eagles offense this year, and honestly last year, that not a ton of people talked about. Shout out to JT O'Sullivan, who identified it in like week 2 of last year. That the just incredible stuff on his YouTube channel. That the Philadelphia Eagles offense with Jalen Hurts does not have hot routes against the blitz. It just doesn't. And so the answer to the blitz is Jalen Hurts does some magic stuff, right? And it turns out that there's like, you exhaust that pretty quickly. And part of that, I think, is because of Hurts's progression as a quarterback, like the things that you can ask him to do, the things that you can't ask him to do. And, to Luke's point, they also did have to sit Jalen Hurts for a little bit before they could put him out into the field, right? So he was an older quarterback prospect. He transferred from Alabama to Oklahoma. And like Jalen Hurts, Bo Nix wasn't good until he was older than the people he was playing against, which to me is a little bit alarming, right? Because like the thing with older prospects is, like Braun said, hey, there's like a thing that you need to fix. Is that thing, is it explainable why it wasn't fixed until now? And is it relatively easy to fix in the NFL? Or, the second thing is, if he's always been good, right? If he was good as a 19-year-old against 20-year-olds, if he was good against as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, is that like, does that give us like some credence to say, hey, the reason he's playing well is not just because he's older than everyone, right? And that's not been the case for Nix, right? So that is another concern. Again, Jalen Hurts, that's kind of a comp. I wouldn't say Jalen Hurts was like bad at Alabama, but I was genuinely thinking, hey, he might be a better running back. Right. That's until he went to Oklahoma. Right. So I think that that's all fair. The instances where you have Bo Nix like process a play, right, where it's closer to a standard NFL drop back, it's not there for me. Anytime there's like a complex decision to be made or a defense to read, he's just not processing very quickly. And he immediately goes into like creation mode. Like, hey, my first thing isn't here. I'm going to start scrambling, whether or not there's pressure. I think that his response to pressure, I don't know. I've toned this down a little bit. I used to just hate quarterbacks that leaned away from pressure all the time, because to me, that's just like, whether or not the numbers are good, to me, that like betrays like I just can't handle pressure. Right. And that's been historically like less true as time has gone on, as I've observed quarterbacks, but it still bothers me a lot. And that's something that he does. So I don't love it just because I don't think he necessarily has the quick processing. I don't think that the offense is there. I think that even though he's got a pretty good arm and decent accuracy, the accuracy component is not asking him to like fit it over a linebacker under a safety.
No layers to it. You're right.
Yeah. And so you're not like feathering these like balls in that require like a complex decision-making process. He's not holding a guy with his eyes and then throwing away from the guy. Like, it's just, there's not a lot there for me to be like, okay, I get he's an older prospect, but there's like some stuff I really like. Like, at least Michael Penix, like, I think that there's like stuff that you like as a processor that's there for you to be like, okay, he's older, but like, he's clearly progressed a little bit in some areas. I don't know that that's necessarily true for Bo Nix.
And with the Jalen Hurts thing too, it's like, okay, one of the things that made him so enticing was he was the #1 ranked quarterback from the athleticism score at the combine. So like, that's an A+. Bo Nix, it's not as elite.
It's probably,
how do you quantify or how do you make that decision in your head? That's like, okay, it's still a B+, that's great. But is that enough to, again, kind of mask some of the issues that Arif just pointed out, again, as far as just being a pure pocket thrower and passer, going through his reads and progressions? I don't think so. So that's why I look at that tier, and we'll see the medicals on Penix, and, I'm sure the JJ McCarthy hype will slowly start to build as we get closer to April. But I think Bo Nix is like a definitely day 2 type of guy for sure. And again, probably a red shirt
class at quarterback this year, man.
Really?
Yeah, it's
old.
crazy. It's crazy.
Bo Nix led college football in passer rating under pressure at 145.4. Here's the catch. He was like never pressured. And that's probably a function of the throws and the offense.
Super
at
fast.
The lowest
screens,
pressure rate.
RPOs,
and not even close. Like, lowest pressure rate by a long shot, less than 15% pressured. He's going to be pressured double that or more in the NFL.
I think his ADOT decreased drastically going from Auburn's offense to Oregon's offense too. So as far as like the deep shots and scanning the field, staying in the pocket,
entirely different offense, entirely like the offense is going to be the engine more than the quarterback type stuff. Like, obviously, like any offense is going to need some talent at quarterback, but this one was less, hey, we've got a quarterback with tools, we're going to use those tools, and more, we've got an offense that's got a bunch of parts working together, and the scheme is going to kind of carry us. Like, that's what it was.
Yeah. Somebody threw out the Baker Mayfield comp, and it's definitely not apples to apples by any means, but you can see similar parts and shades to his game as well as Baker.
I get it. I think Baker was a more I'm saying this as a processor, a more mature processor.
100%. Absolutely.
Mature, not usually used to describe Baker Mayfield, but
Right.
I think in this context it works.